So this is a quote by Warren Buffett. He says, read 500 pages every day. That's how knowledge works. It builds up like a compound interest. All of you can do it, but he guarantees not many people will do it. Yeah. This is also another very true story. Happened in 2018, July 16. So we have a group of young boys trapped in the cave. And thankfully, one young boy able to converse very simple English. And finally and eventually, they are all safe. Yeah. So these are the things that is real, is happening. So the trending issues in Singapore, I'm not too sure in Malaysia, do you face this issue? Everybody is on the mobile phone. Yeah, so it's unfortunate. I think social media, they have really put in so much effort to lure all the people into that, unfortunately. This is what happened in Tokyo, in a train station, whereby you can see more people are reading. So we really hope that one day the culture has changed. The people in Singapore and Malaysia, they carry books everywhere they go. Yeah. So then what is a good reading material? Would you agree that newspaper, storybooks, magazines, comics are very good material for reading? We personally believe that as a good reading material, you must be able to engage students, entertain students, it must be educational, and lastly, it is edutainment, or the 4 E's combination. So do you think this is enough? So we go further, okay? So our approach of our reading material is we will engage all the 5 core skills within one publication, which is writing and representing, reading, listening, speaking, and representing. So these are our publications, which you can see on with you now. We have I, we have Inspire, we have iThink. So I is a thematic approach. Every issue covers a specific theme. For example, food, holidays, media, sports, technology, and so forth. So Inspire will be thematic as well. So what we do is every issue will cover specific themes, followed by iThink. Okay, this is on thematic again. So essentially, 3 different publications cater for 3 different age groups. I will be the younger one. The Inspire will be somewhere in the middle. Then for iThink will be more higher. So without any further ado, I would like to pass the microphone to Shobhanaya. She's our chief editor. She will walk you through the content and how the content will further benefit the students.
Yes. Hello, good morning, everyone. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Nixon. All right, so the important thing for us, of course, is at the end of the day, whether anything's interesting or exciting or not, we have to teach the skills. And we can't run away from the 5 skills, or should I say 4 plus representing. Representing, what we mean is because nowadays we're actually bombarded with visual stimuli. So I think that's something else that, like advertisements, web pages. So to really decipher that, that's another challenge as well. But so basically just to understand, give us a big picture. So when we talk about teaching language, we're actually teaching 2 big categories. One is reception, what is being received. And the other one is production, right? So the other one is production. So receptive skills, they include listening and, of course, reading, because we are processing it, or the students are processing it. And the other one is production. As you would know, it is what we are speaking, that will be oral, as well as writing. So, so that's just the big picture, which we are all familiar with. So how do we do this? So that is the challenge today. How do we do this so that it's effective, yet it's engaging, and something, at the end of the day, we see some results, right? So I just want to share what we do. So let's try reading comprehension first. So that is the first receptive skill that I want to look at. For when we talk about reading comprehension, the first thing is, okay, so you're given a passage. Okay, so the students are just given a text. And it's like, okay, go read. Okay, so what you're going to come up with, right? So what do you think? So as you're reading, right, a lot of things are happening. So firstly, do they know what the content is about? So let's say the content is about artificial intelligence. So the first thing is, do they know what it is? And if they say, yeah, I know. But then how much do you know? What exactly do you know? Do you think they're just computers? Or do you think they're only robots? Do you think only robots which move have AI? And things like that. So basically, as we teach, In a test, we can't help it. They just have to do the test. But when we teach the skills, we start off by giving them a pre-activity before exposing them to the text. Do you all do that? Usually, yeah, that's great. So that's something that we want to do. And secondly, once they do that, we get them to read the text, and then we do post-activity, which is the skills. The different skills, that is the reading comprehension questions, verbal or written. So we have these categories: literal, vocabulary, language use, and inferential, which I'll go through in a bit. So I just wanted to, like today, let's just pretend that we are the students here, and I just want you to refer to this one, and I want you to read it, and then tell me what kind of pre-activity we could possibly do for our kids. Yes, I'll show you this one. Okay, pages 14 to 15, just 2 pages there. Just a quick one. This is a fiction text, so it's narrative B. So the question here is, so what kind of pre-activity can we conduct? What do you think? Any ideas? Just shout. Something you've thought about? Yeah.
Hi, the idea I was thinking of is, because this is a child with dyslexia, there's 2 ideas. The first one would actually be, I think online you can find examples of how a dyslexic child sees something. So if they're trying to read a word, for example, if we see the word courage, sometimes dyslexics, they think that it jumps around up and down, up and down. So I'd get a passage all like that and trying to get other students to read it. Or the second activity I was thinking of is if you could do a whole class activity where you get 2 volunteers to come up. And the first one, you would give them a blindfold. And then the one that has a blindfold, you would have another partner who would try and give them directions on, like, it could be like how to put, I don't know, a Lego house together, how to do something. But because they've lost their vision in their eyes, it makes that task a lot more challenging, and it creates a lot more empathy.
I think that's an excellent point on empathy, and I think it's about what do you do when you do not know what to do, right? Because I think what's happening is the child just couldn't, like for example, the sound and all, the child just couldn't take it. If I'm not wrong, I think the condition is more autism, probably, and maybe a bit of dyslexia together as well. Yeah, so there are actually a couple of things we can do. So as we talked about, it's actually struggles of a child with special needs, and eventually the story goes on to how she uses social media to cope. And so how do we prime our students to understand the context here? Like, how sure are we that our students have had the exposure, you know, to have seen? Maybe some of them could have had a sibling, but some of them may have seen kids who behave in what we would call in a very weird way, and they can't quite, it's really odd that they can't quite put a finger to it. But then what do we do, right? So that's what we are talking about in terms of pre-activity. So one of this could be use of info bites. Okay, this is a very simple one, but you could just start off with something and you say, you know, 35% of young adults with autism are not employed. Then that gives you a chance to talk about autism. That gives you a chance to talk about why they might not be employed, why particularly this group. Or you can have newspaper clippings, right? So this is something that, I'm not sure how many students really read the papers here, but in Singapore they don't really read, yeah? I'm quite sure it's a shared sentiment, so yeah. So, but anyway, so we can do our part, right, by bringing it to them, which is what I used to do actually. I used to get them to talk about current news and all, if not they're so ignorant, right? So we try to do that whenever we have the time. So there's something else we can do. And the other one actually that's, I think it's more powerful perhaps, is to use, is to actually use YouTube videos. Yeah, so I think that's readily available, and we can just Google, and we find that very easily nowadays as well. So I just want to, for the purpose of this session, we will just watch one video.
A couple years ago, I took my son Josh and my son Jordan, who's autistic, to a local pizza place, and I couldn't get him comfortable. He was biting his hand. He was grabbing things. I was apologizing to people. And Jordan had a full meltdown. Right when the plate hit the floor, I was done. Josh was embarrassed. I was embarrassed. Josh and I are trying to coach each other back and forth. People saying, don't bring him, people yelling at us. So I finally vowed that I was going to leave him at home. I would not take him to a restaurant and allow Josh the respect to, it's hard for him. Very hard. It's not good to feel not wanted and not good. When a typical person doesn't feel good or unwanted, they also react in strange ways. So imagine how he feels when he can't talk. In the years since this episode, we became a very big part of the friendship circle, and he has all these friends, and the friends come to our house.
Stop here.
So
we can actually use this video. I think it's quite powerful, a bit sad, right? I know. It is, but then I think it is true, and I think it is a real struggle. I mean, with people whom I know as well. So, but anyway, so given that we show them this video, and so there's a little bit of emotions there. So we can use this. And so how do we move from here? So we have now shown the video. What do we do next? Ask some questions. Yes. What kind of questions do you think we can pose to them? Yeah. How do you react if you are one of the child? Yeah. How do you think? What about how do you react if you are one of the people at the restaurant? Yeah, right? That's wonderful, yeah? So how would you have reacted? Would you have reacted the same? Perhaps those who are bold enough may have said, yeah, because they don't really understand. They think it's just a badly behaved child who can't be controlled by the parent. Okay, simple as that, right? So what else can we ask them, right? So we can ask them a couple of questions like this. So like, what made the kid annoying to the people at the restaurant, right? So what was he doing? So we can pose such questions, trigger, and they will say, oh, yeah, he was like acting really oddly. He was biting his nails, and then after he started looking so edgy, and then he just pushed the plate away, and he crashed, and then he made a big hula baloo, right? So they can talk about that. And how is he different from other children? Do all children react this way? I mean, are they kids? Not really, right? So there's some maturity level. There's some social awareness that this boy, so we can actually guide them along this way, right? And so, of course, as she said, how do you think the kid felt about the situation, right? And if you are one of the people, what would you have done? So empathy comes in as well, right? So we have a chance to teach some social-emotional skills as well to the kids. So, yes, so after doing all this, so they have an idea. So we orientate them. So we are priming them, just like you prime your meat. So we prime the kids, right? So they're now ready to attack the text. So now we pose them. Now go read this. So they're better, they are more ready, and perhaps the vocabulary might also come easier because there's more context to it. So we get them to read like what you have done earlier. So we have done this. So the next thing to do now is, once you have read, we must test their understanding, right? So this is where I want to go through the skills. This is the main, right? The main thing, right? We all have to do this, right? At the end of the day, right? So literal is actually, I don't know what you call them here, factual questions? Do you call them factual or literal? Factual? Yeah, they're same thing actually, just different names to it. And vocabulary, I think literal or factual, they're quite clear-cut. That means the answer is quite very much there in the text, right? But even then, students may not get that right because of their choice, right? And then vocabulary is when they ask you to pick a word, pick a phrase that has the same meaning as so and so forth. Language use is sometimes asking you to talk about metaphorical usage. So this could come, may or may not. And finally, inferential, which needs a little bit more than just literal skills. It's not in your face type, right? So let's just take a look at this text, and we're just going to try to just look at one example of each, okay, just for the purpose of this session. So let's start with the most basic one, the literal question. So the literal question, let's say the first one. In what two ways did the other kids pick on the narrator? Okay, so what do we first tell them? Take a look at the question and come again. Name name calling. Yeah. So in other words, you are already coming to the answer, right? So, but then do you think the kids know what pick on means? May not be, right? Some may be, some may not be. So maybe this might be something. So if we don't know, then how can I go on? Maybe you can. Because let's take a look at the text. So before we go on, we first of all tell them, let's just highlight some keywords. So I'll say, okay, 2 ways, 2, if not, you're not going to get the mark. And then pick on, right? So I'm just going to extract the paragraph. This is from paragraph 1. So it goes on, blah, 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 blah. And then, the word pick on is there. So we teach them this skill that, look, even if you do not know the meaning, it does not mean that you can't do the question. You can actually still answer the question quite decently. And eventually you're and we will be guiding them to understand what it means. So pick on simply means bully, right? To pick on you, right? To bully you, all right? So that's that. So that's how, so we can actually use things like this, like a slide, and we can, actually highlight to them as we are doing, pick out and show them on the screen. So it's actually very clear instead of just showing them on paper alone. So I think maybe, you're probably already, some of you are probably already doing this already. So this will be a good way. And then finally, we ask them to highlight the answer that directly answers the key question here. So the 2 ways, so name calling, like one of our friends mentioned, and constant teasing, right? Now, them deliberately or ignoring me, it's a bit of a question mark. Is that also called picking on? Little hazy, right? If I were to pick 2 ways, we will say pick the one that's more direct, right? So this is how you make a good choice. So it's arguable that this could also be picking on, deliberately, you're deliberately ignoring the person. In a way, it's picking, in a way, it's bullying. By ignoring, you're also bullying. But then, if I were to give 2 ways, I would choose the top 2. So we also give them this skill. Tell them that sometimes you just have to try to get the 2 best answers. If they ask for 3, then perhaps we can also include this.